Very pleased to have a returnee guest to the Mike Schikman Show. She is the founder of Generations Health Education, a full-service healthcare education organization with over 20 years of experience in healthcare. Jennifer FitzPatrick is also a gerontology instructor at Johns Hopkins University Certificate in Aging program. Her mission is to help healthcare, mental health, and senior living organizations generate patient and caregiver loyalty through generous service. She's been on our show many, many times because she's a lot of common sense that caregivers and those who are getting care really should hear. Jennifer, welcome back. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, thanks so much for having me back, Mike. I think the first appearance was about 5 years ago almost.
Something like that, yeah, because I try to have you on every 6 to 8 months at the minimum because you have a lot to say. Her best-known book is Cruising Through Caregiving, Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One. Jennifer, with COVID-19, with the strange political shenanigans and everything else that's going on, boy, the stress on caregivers is monstrous.
It's tremendous, Mike. It is absolutely tremendous. I think we tend to be really worried right now about the oldest adults and people with a lot of health conditions, but not too many people, and people are talking about the school kids, but we don't hear a lot about what's going on with family caregivers right now, and there's a lot of stress that they are experiencing.
For the person who's getting care, the caregiver is oftentimes today the only tie to the outside world. You can't touch family. Yeah. You can't, you're in a box and they're in a box and you can wave through the window.
I think it's so important for everybody to think about what makes sense for them. What is a calculated risk? So, for example, I've worked with families recently saying, well, I don't want to bring in help in the home. I don't want to bring in a healthcare aide because, well, that person would be out and about and I can't track where they were. And so they don't get that help and they continue to increase their stress. Well, there are ways to be safe about it. There are, maybe if you are bringing in an aide, maybe require a COVID test or work with an organization that provides COVID tests. Maybe if you are going to bring help into your home via friends and family, I think in a lot of ways it's more dangerous in some ways to do everything by yourself, because if you're the only one providing care, yes, you might be putting a little vacuum seal around your house. It's just you and your loved one, but mental health is going to suffer for both of you. It really is something that you have to take calculated risks to get additional help for your loved one, especially if there's physical labor involved in caring for your loved one.
And that's the other thing. We have a graying generation, but there is so much more physical things that go wrong these days. And, sometimes you just can't rely on yourself, and you have to realize you need help.
And I think the messages that we're giving people is wait till there's a vaccine, wait till there's no COVID out there. And the thing about it is there is a silver lining. We are getting closer to herd immunity. I think that the COVID rates are beginning to decline again. And people have to make calculated risks on how they want to live their lives. And so a calculated risk might be you taking your loved one to the doctor. They have a doctor's appointment. You're taking them out of the house. But I think another calculated risk is, okay, maybe you're not going to take them to a crowded market or you're not going to take them to a concert, and we know there's not even concerts to take them to, but bringing in other family or paid help, that might be a calculated risk that you want to take right now. The other thing that you may want to consider is if you are absolutely exhausted and you're feeling like you can't do it anymore and you want to look into senior living options, one of the things that's nice about that is if you move into a senior living community, in most areas, you are going to be priority for getting the vaccine, your loved one who moves there, because it's congregate housing. So I'm not saying that that's the right choice for everybody. It's not, but it is something to think about if you're thinking, gosh, it's too much. I can't do this anymore. My loved one is socially isolated. I think we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the mental health problems that all of this social isolation is doing to our country.
not only for the elderly and their caregivers, but especially the youngsters, because school used to be the one central product for 180 days a year. And now it's online, and heck, they even have apps that can simulate background house noises so you can do something else without paying attention to the teacher.
Actually, Mike, I haven't heard about those, but that's very interesting. The other thing I think that we need to be considering if you are family caregiving is especially small children are very low risk. We know from all the data that's out there, there's tons of data to support this. They are typically not carriers of COVID. Okay, they don't get serious symptoms of COVID. Their risk is almost zero. If you look at the Great Barrington Declaration, that is very clear. And so maybe you're not going to have all the friends and neighbors and family come over to hug grandmom or hug your spouse who has health issues, but maybe the grandkids can come over because, again, like I said, there is tremendous data saying that kids don't spread it. They are not super spreaders. And if kids do get COVID, they have very, very, very mild symptoms and are mostly asymptomatic. So that might be another way to reduce isolation for your older loved ones that are homebound.
And we also minimize in our minds, but to the elderly, the weekly family visit or dinner is huge. Huge.
And so, Mike, and I talk a lot about this in Cruising Through Caregiving, if you are not comfortable with any of those issues that we talked about, letting kids be near the older loved ones, taking some calculated risks, moving to senior living, hiring aides, but making sure that there's COVID tests, then don't underestimate the power of phone calls. If you have to, if you feel the only way to visit your loved one is through a window, do that. Maybe do Zoom. No, though, I want one caveat to be that a lot of older adults, especially those over 80, are not going to be as technologically savvy as young people. So some of them are going to say, "No, what? I don't want to do Zoom. I don't want to do Skype." And you got to accept that. That's okay. Do a phone call, send gifts, send cards. A lot of older adults are going to appreciate you sending a handwritten card rather than doing a Zoom call. I know for you and me and for a lot of us would say, "Oh, that's crazy. A Zoom call is much better. You can see each other." Some people, they just don't like to communicate that way, especially the very oldest of our population. But think about ways. There's a lot of ways that we can try to take calculated risks and be cautious and be safe while trying to minimize the mental health damage we're doing to our older loved ones and family caregivers.
Jennifer FitzPatrick, author of Cruising Through Caregiving. Jennifer, where can people learn more?
CruisingThroughCaregiving.com. If you go there, you can get a free copy of the first chapter as well as all the worksheets from CruisingThroughCaregiving.com.
Jennifer, it is always such a pleasure to chat with you. Stay well, be well, and come back and join us again.
I'd love to, Mike. Thanks so much.